What's up, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Yeah, I'm your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose is where you can find me. I'm your co-founder and co-host for tonight's $1 Million Mission Show. Joined alongside me is Brian, at BrianJesterFF on Twitter is where you can find him. He is the co-founder and CEO of Occupy Fantasy and the main subject of the $1 Million Mission. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Moose? Yeah, speaking of TikTok, just checking through our notifications here. Post a new video tonight. Hate it with every fiber of my being, but we're going to continue to post on TikTok for 4 or 5 times a week until the season's over. See how it goes.
Yeah, and just really quick, I know this is the $1 Million Mission, which I guess TikTok can technically be a part of that.
The million follower mission.
Yes. I think it makes sense because sometimes you can get like a really quick point across that drives deeper discussion. So almost like, hey, I'm throwing this idea out there. What does everyone think about it?
Yeah, definitely. TikTok definitely has its pros and cons, and the massive audience is definitely a major pro. And maybe we'll get some more viewers because of our TikTok presence.
Definitely. What's up, Carl? He says, is Jason on TikTok? Can you say thirst trap? Yeah, if you're not a thirst trap, then I don't know what you're doing.
That's true. It's hard to get followed. As I can attest to, if you're not a thirst trap, it's very difficult to get views on TikTok.
Definitely. Cool. So the $1 Million Mission is for Brian to repeat his $1 Million victory on DraftKings or FanDuel. We take a look at his results last week, his year-to-date results on high dollar on GPPs. See how he's done. We look at what some other pros did, what the field did, a whole bunch of great stuff. And again, this is a 30-minute show. So if you have questions, if there's something we go by that you're a little bit confused on, you want us to expand on, now's the time to ask. We love answering questions. We're not going to be answering any questions about the upcoming week DFS. That'll be for our Saturday show. But Brian, let's just jump right into it. If we take a look here, how you did on FanDuel week 4, 2,700 in entries, a little under 1,400 in winnings for a minus 49% ROI, which isn't good.
Yeah, pretty typical, right? But we talked about it, I think every week so far, how even on bad weeks, my floor is pretty high. Like minus 70% is the absolute worst probably, which isn't great, but like that, I know that's the floor. And then on an average week, it's minus 50%. And we're just banging out minus 50% until we get the big spike week. So
yeah, absolutely. And then over on DraftKings, a little better results, $5,100 in entries, $3,200 in winnings for a minus 37% ROI.
Yep, exactly. So surprisingly a little bit better on DraftKings. What killed me this week was, and we'll talk about this here probably later, but just when Tyreek scores 50 points, I'm not going to win. It's just not going to happen because it generally means Mahomes, Tyreek, 2-0 stacks are at the top of leaderboards, and I can't get there because I don't play 2-0 stacks with Tyreek. So, once I saw him catch the 3rd touchdown, I knew I was pretty much dead. Plus, Cordell Patterson had 3 touchdowns. I was like, well, this is just – I'm surprised I even did this well, to be honest.
Yeah, because you're going to have those random people who just play random – like out of 300,000 people, you're going to have one person play Tyreek and Cordell, which right there is going to win you the million anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But the winner of the DraftKings million didn't even have Tyreek in it somehow.
Wow. Correlated upside.
For real.
And if we go ahead and take a look at how you've done year-to-date on both sites, you're still up $24,500 in entries, $39,700 in winnings for a 62% ROI, which is good. Very
Fantastic.
good.
Believe me, I'll take it. Like, again, we're aiming for the 100% mark. We hit it 2 years in a row. And there's been a lot of discussion recently on Twitter about people playing cash games and grinding cash games and the differences between pros lineups, and oftentimes it's a 1v1 or at best a 3v3. And to me, it's like, okay, at the best rate, you're grinding to get maybe an 8% ROI if you're really good at cash games. Yeah. When it's like easier said than done, but I'll just grind the GPPs and get 100% ROI over the season.
Yeah, and it's like because I usually grind. I don't really grind the high dollar GPPs. I'm more of a low risk player, and I would go back and it's like, dude, I put in probably the same amount of work, maybe not the same amount of work, definitely a lot less than you, but I put in a lot of work and I get like 4%, and I was like, that's great. Anytime you can bang out a positive ROI, it's great, and I'm happy with my process and my results. But I'm just like, dude, this has to suck to be the high volume players. It's got to be so crazy to be, risk millions and millions and come out with 4% ROI or something.
Yes, I mean, and that goes to show like the edges in high dollar head to heads, the edges in like 5 and 10 mans at the craziest levels, and to me this is low risk to me, right? We talk like my floor is minus 30%. The floor of a high dollar high dollar head to head player is like 5% or minus 95%, minus 90%, whereas my floor is minus 30% and my upside's plus 550% like we saw last week or whatever. So, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. And I think as the game gets more optimized, and again, this doesn't appeal to casual beginner players, your run-of-the-mill players who are, playing inexperienced players, smaller contests, right? Obviously, those are very, very ROI friendly. But if you're a pro, like it makes no sense to play cash to me.
Yeah. Real quick, Ed might be insane. He says, "What's up? I'm watching from the hospital. Baby number 4 born 45 minutes ago. Congrats, Ed, for being able to do it 4 times. That's great."
Damn, congrats, Ed. Who's the father?
Definitely. And real quick, shout out to Bismo for creating this chart, which is not a chart of Bitcoin, but a chart of Brian's ROI. As you can see, usually the first couple of weeks you're not too hot. We had the spike week in week 3, so looking pretty good.
I'll take it. Week 3 was the earliest spike week so far, and again, we've put more and more effort into it, so it shows.
Yep. Max, speaking of Bismo, he says, regarding the 2-0 stacks, Kansas City stacks, did you ever think to build Mahomes, CEH, Tyreek to unlock Henry? Didn't even cross my mind until lineup review. I went Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, and crushed it.
He said Kelsey sucked, and the cheap players I needed to jam also sucked. Also put in Swift and Najee and forgot about running back. So, so I get it. And again, so when I make my 150, I'm very particular about my custom stacks. I normally tell people it takes me about an hour to set it up and run it a bunch of times to get to even understand the slate. And then it takes me another 30 minutes or so to tweak. So like an hour and a half per slate per 150. And in doing that, I do the custom stack for each game stack that I'm doing. And I did put in some Mahomes, CEH, Tyreek lineups, but it was like I think 2 of my lineups had them. Ran it back with Devonta, but the rest of my lineups just somehow sucked around it. So I did do those, and I think that's a good way, especially if the running back's cheap. It's a way to get around it, and mostly for Chiefs games, it's always a question of how do we navigate how expensive their stack is in general. But it's also really tough because if Tyreek scores enough points, it likely means Kelsey didn't score enough points and vice versa. So, I mean, that's why another reason why the Curtis Samuel theory comes into play, because you really can't play both those guys together at their prices. I mean, they got to score like 60 points for it to work, and it's really tough.
Yeah, you pretty much agree with that. Johnny says, DFS contest selection question. How should one approach a winner-take-all contest, like a small field, high-risk approach?
Yeah, those are the ultimate high risk, right? 99% of the field loses or whatever. So, yeah, I would play like a big GPP as far as 3-1 stacking, because you're aiming for top 1% finishes anyways, and the way to accomplish that is how we've discussed building lineups on here. So it really doesn't change too much unless you notice some sort of trend in those contests after you've been playing them a couple times.
Yep, definitely. Aaron says, I thought I saw one lineup with a secondary and tertiary stack at the top of the leaderboard. I don't know, Brian, was there any? I can't remember.
Potentially. I know last week there might have been this week. I haven't looked too closely yet, but yeah, once we do the lineup, once we go over to Fantasy Labs, we can take a look. I'm sure there probably was some near the top.
Definitely. And really quick, since we do talk about potential million contests, let's talk about our pick'em, which we're not good at. Let's just be honest. We went 2-3 last week. We're tied for 574th out of 1,870 entries. We're exactly 50%, 10 out of 20. So not good. We gotta pick it up. Brian, it seems like we picked like the same group of from 7 teams and just get wrecked every time.
I know. We were feeling ourselves after week 1. We went 4-1. Now 3 straight 2-3 weeks. Again, like DFS, we're going to look at the process and see what it's telling us. To be honest, right, if you told me before the season started after week 4 you'll be in the top 30%, I would probably take it. Obviously we'd want to be higher, but I don't feel great about it. Like, we haven't really done that well, and we're still in this spot, so it's hard to complain. But we'll see how we got some figuring out to do here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think what's Also, in our thing here, in our favor here is we haven't used our skip week on DraftKings Pick'em. You do have to use one skip week. We haven't figured out exactly which week we're going to take, but I think it's like 25% of the people have used their skip week so far. I think 12 or 15% of people above us have used their skip week. So if people can use their skip week, if other people use their skip week, and we get a 4-1, 5-0, that can shoot us up the leaderboard too.
Yeah. So we've got to be. That's a very interesting wrinkle to this contest.
Definitely. And then in Survivor, apparently offensive coordinators matter, and we picked New Orleans and lost, and Cincinnati, and we nearly tore our hair out. A little hair.
We were very close to getting 0 entries through, by the way, with that Cincinnati game. New Orleans was super tilting. Defenses, all kinds of mental lapses. Didn't even get the goddamn ball in overtime, which is super tilting. I thought New Orleans was a great pick. Well, now we're down to 1 entry, and we got a solo bullet this Survivor and dodge the next 62% of people. So Moose, let's do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking ahead, and I'm like, man, this week sucks so much ass for a Survivor thing, because as we've noticed, it seems like there's like 2 to 3 teams that just concentrated on like 85% of the ownership every week, and so if those 3 teams advance, there's like half the games don't have any ownership from Survivor, which makes sense. Like, it shouldn't be, but it's very tilting when you have like 100 people get out, like 1% of people get out. It's tough.
I mean, it's just we haven't had a big upset yet, right? So we need one of those big upsets that happen to knock out half the field. And it's just a big in these big contests, you just can't play those guys, because that's what you have to play for. You can't grind it out 18 weeks in a row and just pray that 5% gets out every week. Just in a contest of this size, you need one of those crazy events to happen to whittle it down, because the odds of you hitting 18 in a row is super tough, and especially if you play the chalk route.
Exactly. Yep. Real quick question here from .best. It says, for 20 maxing and deciding between the 2-3 game stacks to play, would it be smart to do a min of 1 wide receiver from that 3rd game stack that you are leaving out so you get some exposure to that game?
Interesting question. I don't think I would force it, because one, you're going to be incredibly tilted if that game goes off, right? And just that receiver gets some points, and you're like, oh damn, I should have stacked that game. Just so, like, mentally, I don't know if it's a great idea. 2, I mean, you really want to. The reason we play 20 max is we need to have a tighter player pool, try to get less things right, minimize the things we need to get right, and that's why you choose just 1 or 2 game stacks. And the fact that now it's week 5 upcoming, and we have underperforming wide receivers that are generally going to take the spot of our 3rd and 4th receiver or flex spots in our lineups, I feel like it's hard to waste a min 1 on a different game stack that you're not stacking. So, I think you just gotta be at peace that you're not stacking that game, and don't try to force anything.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially the mental aspect of very tilting. All right, cool. So I think we've pretty much covered all of that. So let's hope we survive Survivor. That would be great. I at least want some sort of sweat, whether with the Pick'em or the Survivor. But yeah, so let's go over to Fantasy Labs. I do have the 444. Brian, didn't you win a King of the Beach ticket last week?
I did. It was the one saving grace of last week. So as we've talked about, I enter my 150 generally into a bunch of different satellites as well. I play the same 150 in the Millie, in the Slant, and I played the Flea Flicker this week. That's the $5 GPP. Same 150 on FanDuel goes into their different price point GPPs. Try to get each lineup into a satellite. I've had 2 4-4-4-4, 4 4s, 2 4-4-4-4 tickets so far this year. I've airballed both. And they're running it more frequently. They have another one on Sunday, so trying to get another ticket for that. It's funny because like my ROI for that particular type of satellite is like 50%, like plus 50%, but I haven't cashed the ticket yet, so it's minus 100%. But as far as getting the ticket, it's very profitable so far. So this week I did have the 1 entry, finished like 200th out of 700th, and didn't really do anything.
That's not good. Yeah, so like I said, both of us are in live finals. So that should be great. I actually just booked my hotel room for Batavia. tonight.
Oh, you did?
So
Nice.
yeah. So it was funny because the guy from FanDuel was like, I need to know by the end of the week. He sent me an email last week. I was like, we need to know by the end of the week if you and your plus one's coming. I was like, dude, I have to like move things around because like I'd be off that Monday and like occupied. It's like things like I'm gonna be out of town. And he was like, fine. He like very good sport. I'm making him look like a bad guy. I was like, dude, I was like, can I please let you know Monday? Like I know you said at the end of the week. He's like, yeah, just tell me. He's like, as long as you tell me before the 7th. I was like, why'd you tell me at the end of the week then?
He's just trying to get his shit in order. That's
Yeah,
all.
no,
When is that?
So it is November 7th. So we'll definitely have some content. I'm not picking up Garrett because it's an extra 3-hour drive, and each way. I'm not doing that. I love Garrett, but not that much. So we're leaving like Saturday morning, getting there. Batavia Downs is a horse racing track, so I might be in the Discord talking about some horses.
The horsey action. All right.
Horsies, and then leaving Monday morning.
Sweet. Well, that'll be cool. And then, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes for you, Moose. And then the King of the Beach, I've had a couple questions about people asking about this. So you can find it on the promos page on DraftKings. It's 5 entry max. So you can only qualify for it. It's 250 online qualifiers. Week 11, I think, all 250 play in a tournament, and the top 75 advance. And those 75, 2 weeks later in week 13, go down to Fort Lauderdale for like a semi-live final where I think it's like 200K to first, which is it's a nice consolation prize. Believe me, I'm trying to qualify for it. I'm trying to get 5 entries. I'm really aiming for the championship, the Fantasy Football World Championship, because the prize pool is 12.5 million compared to 2 million. So no luck there, but we'll take some King of the Beach tickets for sure in the meantime.
Definitely. All right, question here from Darren says, for cash games, is it more profitable to play head-to-heads or try to finish in the top 45% or so of a double-up tournament?
Very good question. Very good question, Darren. One, it depends on your personal play style and your personal results. Track your results. See what you do. Some people, I could say one thing, but some people, they could look at the results and they're way better in head-to-heads versus double ups. Couple pros and cons here. Double ups, if you can't get a lot of allocation down, that is generally a truer representation of how your lineup did, right? If your lineup finishes, let's just say you played against every DraftKings user that's in their database on a Sunday, and you finished in the 30th percentile, right? You'd have a pretty true understanding in a double up, right? If you're gonna get there, or if you played every single one of those players in a head-to-head, you would get a 30% return, right? But you can't do that. Your bankroll doesn't allow. Not to mention you can't play 1 million head-to-heads or whatever. So, in reality, you end up playing like 10 people head-to-head or 20 people head-to-head. Now, such a small sample that it really distorts, the true outcome of your lineup. So I think double ups reflect that better. But you get lineup trains, you get a lot of pros entering those, you get a lot of the same type of lineups. So there are issues. One way, I think you can have a better ROI if you have the time to sit down and sift through each individual head-to-head to pick off the best 10 or 20 or 30 or however many each week to ensure that you're getting the best competition possible. And when I say best, I mean the worst competition possible.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to tracking your results and seeing how well you do in both contest types.
Yeah, very good answer. Really quick, just a quick side tangent. If Garrett, if you're here, I love that you're like live tilting this Fire Alarm NBA game or something. I don't know exactly what's going on for preseason, but it's great. I love seeing it pop up every 5 seconds in all caps that you're upset about this.
Yeah, it's a super preseason thing. I guess like the sprinkler system's going off in this game. So yeah, if you played that, sucks.
Definitely. Great questions, people that are here. Keep them coming if you have questions. Here from Aaron says the Arizona game total dropped 3 points from yesterday. If you're building stacks and the game was tomorrow, is this a game that you would have less exposure to because of the drop? I know that a lot of the game totals are for this week.
Yeah. That game, I don't see that game total dropping. Maybe I'm looking at something else, but just in general, right? Like if a game drops 2 points, 3 points, even a point, yeah, that's something we knock the stack rankings because that's a pretty big indicator. Things we track, total movements are a big indicator of whether or not a game stack pops off. And anytime, no matter what other things are saying, if we see it drop that much, something's going on. And yeah, we're less inclined to stack it if that's the case.
Definitely. Fad says it looks like punting tight ends is the way to go for DFS. I've gotten burned playing mid and high range tight ends 3 weeks in a row. Yeah, apparently Brian's just double tight end, just like under 3K and you're golden. But I
I
know
mean, I
that's a
mean,
joke, but
every tight end mostly sucks, right? Like
yeah,
if you punt it with Disley this week, that also sucked, right?
yeah,
I guess it just you paid less to suck. I mean, there are different ways. I've been following the model with great success. I know Kelsey didn't do anything this week, but like, I mean, how much can we expect from the guy? He had 20 points in a row in like 20 straight games.
yeah,
He's allowed a dud every now and then. Our number two tight end, Noah Fant, did well. They're different. Tight ends is a tough position in general. I think it's part of a reason why maybe including them in your game stack, like I did with Dalton Schultz this week, is a good way, because if we already think that game environment is going to be high scoring, every player generally benefits. So why not get your cheap tight end in that regard? But again, I wouldn't worry about it too much because it is a very tough position and there's not a lot of upside generally.
yeah, definitely. Um, in other news, DFS is hard.
That's also true.
All right, cool. So let's take a look. I pulled up the $20 GPP. Great username by Wakey Wakey. I love some of these usernames that people come up with. And I'm just gonna pull up your exposures here while this takes time to load.
Yeah, so while you're pulling it up, Moose, if you read the description of this show, one of the topics that we planned on talking about was the running back situations. And it feels, especially this year, like the mid-range running backs have been the way to go. This week, it felt like, I think it was week 2, where we just couldn't pay it for McCaffrey that week. It was just impossible.
Yeah.
And it felt like that on DraftKings this week for paying up for Henry. Henry's in a smash spot. But no matter what I did, I couldn't get more than like 4%. And I was like, well, I'm not going to play 4% of Henry when he's however owned he was. So to me, it just the way the NFL is using running backs with timeshares and the way the salaries are being generated, it just feels like every week now, guys in that 5 to 7K range are where you're getting most of your exposure. Especially on DraftKings. FanDuel, you can do whatever you want, but DraftKings especially, right? You can get because like Chase Edmonds, Mike Davis, Sermon. These were the guys I had to play this week because my stats were really expensive. And even on FanDuel, like guys like Jonathan Taylor was my highest owned running back over there. I just think the nature of the game's changing a bit, and as much as we want to jam those high volume running backs, those popular studs, it's really tough unless we get some cheaper stacks. Just the way the pricing and the nature of the NFL offenses are going right now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you speak about that, a handful of running backs were your highest leverage plays. They're between 5 and 10%, and yet you had 20, even 30% in the case of Chase Edmonds. So it's crazy how the game changes from year to year. So very interesting.
Yeah, I felt terrible about this. Like making my lineups, I didn't feel good at all. So it's not surprising I lost this week.
Yeah, just even looking from the other side, weird how I know like you're always going to be under the field on Cooper Kupp just because everyone plays him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. It seems like a lot of wide receivers you were under were your least leveraged plays this week.
Yeah, so like Nick Westbrook, I didn't really want him in my lineup, right? But 3,200 is hard to pass up. But he's like the perfect like low risk cash game player, right? We talked about it with Jack when he won his 50K. It's like, can this guy score 25 points? Nick Westbrook or Keenan probably can't score 25 points for a GPP for me to play him outside of a game stack. So again, not thrilled about that play. And again, I'm not going to match the field on 20% owned wide receivers if they're not in a game stack. So that's where all this comes from.
Yeah. And .best says, I see OBJ was stupid high owned. Why do you think he was 20% owned, Brian?
I think it was his usage in week 1. He was pretty cheap, right? 5,800. Being a wide receiver 1. The game total was relatively high. So I think that all those factors added up. We might even see him even higher this week once people get a hold of the air yards data.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he would have had like 3 touchdowns if Baker could throw.
I know. Yeah, that's the scary thing. I have a feeling he's going to be on the UPWR list.
Yes, and the one where it takes me like 6 minutes to come up with all the emojis in Discord because there's a bajillion of them.
I know. Speaking of underperforming wide receivers, we had a couple questions, actually more than a couple questions, throughout the week about how to integrate our underperforming wide receiver list into your 20 max, 150 max, hand building, whatever it may be. And so if you go back to my leverage, most of you sort it the other way, you'll notice that outside the running backs, all of my leverage basically are the underperforming wide receivers. The nice thing is all but Stephon Diggs were like 2% owned or less. And so I guess Devonta Smith was 6%. Pittman was 3%. But yeah, Devontae Parker was less than 1%. Sammy Watkins less than 1%. So yeah, I mean, once I saw the projected ownership, I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And there are some weeks where you do want to get one underperforming wide receiver in your lineup just because of how good they are. This week they weren't that great. Even in the way you can tell this is if you looked at our model, you'll notice that none of them particularly ranked that highly, even with the underperforming wide receiver boost. Right, most like Parker and them, they're still in like the 20s, which is higher than they normally are.
Yeah.
But they weren't smash plays like we normally see because the difference between the expected and actual fantasy points wasn't as great as like say a typical underperforming week.
Yeah, you pretty much, yeah, like the fact that I had to go to the second page of the lineup builder to click in some of the underperforming wide receivers, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like they should have overperformed, but their ceilings weren't like, I don't think 30, 40 points like some weeks we might get. Maybe we'll get it this week. So a lot of people asking, do I force them in? Do I not? It depends on the week and let the builder, if you see them in the top 25, yeah, start jamming them. If you have to go to the second page that's, top 30, 40th, 50th ranked wide receivers underperforming, maybe don't force them in if you don't have to. To me, what I did this week, I did min 15% if I could of all the underperformers.
Makes sense. Let's see here. Also, so let's really quick. Let's take a look at. We like to look at game stacks page. So even though this is somewhat high, or low, I mean, and if we look at again showing how game stacks are very low owned. I'm trying to find a 4-man game stack. Don't actually see one.
Yeah, this week I don't think a lot of people 4-man stacked just because of what the games were.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like I'm guessing this is probably 0.1%, which is just nuts. So again, even with if you had a high owned stack, think of like Chiefs or something like that. At the end of the day, it's still going to you're still going to be fine.
Exactly, and we might even see less this week because I think there's only 3 games with a 50-point total or higher, which is the least amount we've had all year, I think. So we could see even less game stacks than we normally do.
Yeah, look at this game stack: Cordero Patterson, Terry McLaurin stack. Speaking of CPatt, like he was very tilting, and I know one of the things in the description was talking about low opportunity, high or low volume, high point score. However you word it. Cordero Patterson didn't have a lot of snaps, but he scored like a bajillion points.
Dude, I audibly gasped when I saw his FanDuel ownership, 15%. I was just beside myself. I could not believe it. We were so far off. I think we projected like 1%. Yeah. I could not believe it. And then he scored his 3rd touchdown. I was like, I could not believe what was going on in my life. So, I mean, these are the type of guys that we saw with Tyler Lockett too, but even less so. Because he's a wide receiver and we're used to receivers vastly underperforming. But Cordero Patterson's playing like 27% of the snaps and just crushing. It's unbelievable. But those are the types of guys you got to look out for. The ownership's going to continue to creep up, even if their salary increases. But you got to realize that they're going to stop scoring touchdowns. This is especially true for running backs, but like tight ends and some of the lesser receivers too. We talk about underperforming wide receivers all the time, but overperforming players in general are something you need to avoid on a general basis. And so a great example was Tyler Lockett, who we've talked about has scored touchdowns at a higher clip than his targets indicate so far this year. And when I was trying to get a bunch of Stephon Diggs on DraftKings, I had to make some tough decisions about some receivers near the top of the salary range. And to me, I was like, well, Tyler Lockett's overperforming, Cooper Kupp's overperforming. I just won't play those guys outside of stacks. Lockett, I didn't stack that game, so I just excluded him entirely, just so I can get as much underperforming Diggs as possible. So I think it's a good thing to look at. Are these guys overperforming? If so, I can be way under the field or just not include them at all.
Yeah, exactly. So we're hitting our 10:30 mark. Again, if you have questions, keep them coming. But let's just run through the last couple of things we talk about. Excuse me. Some reports here shows again, basically everyone uses their salary or between 500 and the full salary.
There's no need. There's no need to use less in NFL Classic. And when I set my lineup builder, I just use 1,000 left over and I upgrade most of the time anyway. So
okay, nice. And 12% of all lineups use a tight end in the flex, which is 12% too high. Again, shows top 1% was less at 9%.
All is right in the world.
Yes, it only took 4 weeks, but we're here.
What was that number for the 4-4-4-4, by the way, the tight end usage?
Let's see. It was 9.5% all lineups and 0% for the top one.
I mean, I can't really like brag because I didn't cash, but still, that's terrible.
Yeah. And in the slant, which I think is a little sharper, same thing. Yeah, basically half usage. And if we look at duplicates, like look at dupes, this was look at this dupe in the slant. Teddy, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton.
Tim Patrick, no, what in the world? Oh, one guy entered that 75 times.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, that's interesting.
Seems suboptimal to me.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Okay.
That's.
Yeah.
I assume he did it on accident. That would be terrifying to think about.
So this duplicated line with Mahomes, Tyreek, Mecole is fun.
Oh, and it's a 3-by-1.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Nice.
Interesting.
Definitely. If we go over to that was the slant. We look at the millionaire maker.
By the way, if you're gonna dupe with 7 other people, you better flex a wide receiver against a defense. What is stupid? It's so stupid. What are people doing?
Yeah, I don't know. While that's loading, I think we have some questions here. Ed says, in captain mode lineups with an underperforming wide receiver, would you captain the underperforming wide receiver in most lineups for leverage or just use them in flex?
Fantastic question. And I'll hit on this briefly. I did discuss this in Discord, so if you guys missed it in Discord, or if you're not in Discord, definitely join. But Sunday night, we were literally talking about it since like Tuesday. How Sunday night was like circled on our calendar for the best showdown slate of the year for potential leverage, right? Jacoby Myers, underperforming wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar, underperforming wide receiver. Mac Jones getting 5% captain treatment. All the narratives about Brady, all the projection systems telling you to play 5-1 Tampa Bay stacks. Like everything lined up perfectly. Naturally, I was like less than a half point away from 200K. Naturally, right? Yeah. But just to show how much I believe in underperforming wide receivers and leverage and showdown, I exclusively played in 150 lineups for $2,200 or whatever it was. Only Jacoby Myers, only Nelson, only Mac Jones. I had like 45% Jacoby, had 35% Aguilar, and 20% Mac Jones. Like that's literally all I did. So yeah, when you get a kind of spot like that, especially if they're in a leverage situation, yeah, take full advantage of the underperforming aspect and captain them.
Yeah, definitely. DFS is a thought process of excluding players and taking that stand is definitely something I still need to work on. It can be tough, Brian, of excluding a player, especially if they're popular or they're overperforming. It can like mentally, it can be challenging. Saying if he keeps doing what he's doing, I know I'm not going to win.
Yeah, this dude scored 6 touchdowns in 3 weeks. I have to not play him, right? That seems terrifying to think about. But the builder will let you know, right? If you build without many rules and you're getting 3% Derrick Henry, if you're getting 2% Lockett, 1% Cup, like it's telling you, like you really can't fit these guys in unless you make an active decision to do that. And it's probably a bad decision if you're making that active decision without any reason besides they've done well recently.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to this lineup here that was duped 50 times in the Millionaire Maker with Mahomes, Hardman, Kelsey. Didn't get the 60-point Tyreek play in.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Damn.
Very interesting that the most duped lineup was the Jets. Very surprised at that. Had the Jets defense surprised at that.
I'm almost positive that was a Roto Grinders optimal lineup, just based on what we know and how many people played this lineup and the fact that they punted the defense. You get to feel what other optimizers do, and this feels like an optimize like click generate lineup from our Roto Grinders. I'm entered in the Millie with 120 other friends.
True. All right, cool. And I think that actually we'll take a look at the winner and congratulate the winner here, and then we'll get up out of here.
Let's see, the winner didn't have Tyreek, right?
Correct. Yeah. So Jay Zinser, I said that right. Had the Dak. They had the Dak Dalton Schultz stack, ran it back with DJ Moore. The all Flames lineup. Gotta love that.
I mean, you're gonna need some flames if you're gonna win the Millie against 300,000 people. But yeah, so this is so fucking tilting. Cordell Patterson, 34 points. Devo, like outside the 2-1 game stack, which is it's pretty correlated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still just a bunch of one-offs that just absolutely went off, which is what you need if you're not gonna fully game stack, which makes it that much more difficult to win.
Yeah, pretty much. So, All right, Brian, is there any last lingering thoughts or anything else you want to look at before we get out of here?
I don't think so. Nope. If you guys have questions, you know where to find us in Discord or comment on this video. But yeah, we're hitting the home stretch here. We're hitting the thick of the NFL season where we start to see some spike weeks. So I'm excited. I feel like a big week coming. I mean, it's funny because we had the spike week last week, and just like a week later, I immediately feel like I didn't have a chance of winning this week. So for everyone who plays every week, just try to keep reminded. If I can, after a big week, can have a mental week where it's tough to feel like I'm not going to win, everyone can fall victim to it. So just stay the course and keep playing and keep grinding and keep evaluating your process, because you're going to hit if you keep following what we do.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all you can do. So until next time, I am Moose, and he is Brian. We're from OccupyFantasy.com.
Hey, Moose, real quick, DJ Dog's asking, do we have our own optimizer? It's not an optimizer, but we have a lineup builder that we exclusively use, and we actually built it with the help of Jack, who's the architect. But we decided to build our own lineup builder because we wanted to spit out lineups the way we want them to. So yes, OccupyFantasy.com/lineup builder. DJ Dog is where you can find that info.
Sweet. Yep. Let me actually link that in here really quick for people that are checking it out.
Oh, it's in the description too if you're watching this video after the fact.
Yep. So just put that in the chat as well. Go ahead and check that out. Awesome. So until next time, again, if you have more questions, there's the Discord, email, all that good stuff. Moose and Brian from Occupy. Have a good one.